Hello, everyone. My name is Lorianne Minoff. I am a 2024 local president down in Broward County, and I am joined with the 2022 past national president, Sylvia Seabolt. Thank you so much for being here today, Sylvia.
Thanks for having me.
I'm super excited to get to know you better. Actually, little spoiler alert, your installation was the first national installation that I had ever attended, so I kind of feel a little bit, this is like a little special moment.
Oh, fun. Such a fun moment after being separated from everybody with COVID. I
Yeah.
think it was like a big celebration for everyone, and that's what I wanted it to be.
Yeah. Well, going into that, let's hear a little bit about yourself. So if you can give us like a little introduction.
Ooh, that's a loaded question. There's so much I could say. Um, so I've been in real estate my entire life. I actually started working in real estate in high school. So it was a natural fit for me to become part of Women's Council. And I feel like a lot of people know my story, but for anyone out there that doesn't, I was in high school. I was working at a real estate office answering phones. It was before showing time or any type of company like that that schedules showings. I was the showing girl, and I vowed I hated realtors and I would never get in real estate. And you know what happens when you do something like that, you end up in real estate. But at the same time, my mom had gotten her real estate license, and she came to me and said that she was going to be president-elect and eventually president of this thing called Women's Council of Realtors. And that's where my journey started. Do you want more details on that? Because
I
it's
love it. I'm actually loving it. This is great.
okay. So that's where my journey started because at that time I was 17 and I just thought there is no way my mom can do that. Like she's not a leader. She can't, there's no way she can lead an organization. You know, hindsight is I can see she was a single mom. She was raising me. Of course, she was a leader. I just didn't see it. But I jumped in. I wanted to help her out. I wanted to, help with the newsletter or greeting people at the door or whatever it was, because I didn't want her to embarrass me. And yeah, she knows this story now. It's not it's not a surprise, but I didn't want her to embarrass me, and so I wanted to make her look successful. But the most important thing I did in all of that behind the scenes work was watch my mom. And I watched her become a leader. I watched this organization pull leadership skills out of her that not only did I not know existed, she didn't know existed either. And so that began my love of Women's Council because I had my eyes open to this person that I had known my entire life, and saw her blossom, and I wanted that for myself. So I dove in to figure out what that meant for Sylvia, and it took a long journey. I'm still finding out what it means for me, even as a past president, because every year you learn and you grow and you adapt and you change and become a better version of yourself. So
So
that's the story.
I love it. I love it so much. And I think that we all have these stories, kind of, growing up and, what brings us to this place that we're at right now. And especially as it relates to Women's Council, just how, it kind of, the hashtag is truly correct and leaders made here. So, I've heard this so many times about people being tapped on the shoulder and they didn't see something, somebody saw something in them that they didn't see in themselves, and the rest is history, and you know how this works. So definitely can appreciate stories like that. So as a past national president of Women's Council, what would you say are some of the major contributions you made to the organization during your tenure?
Oh, wow, you are on it with the loaded questions. I feel like when you're in that role of the face of the organization, whether you're the local president or the state president or the national president, that is not your time to accomplish anything. It comes years before then. You have to set things into motion so that things can be happening. So when I started on the national line, it was working with the leaders. I didn't create the Leadership Institute that we have at National, but I got to be part of that and carry that out. And so that was something that I was very, very passionate about because I love bringing up the next generation of leaders. And so I I just love that timing worked out perfect, that as I was first year on the line, it was our very first institute. And so each year we had a new class of institute students, and it was just great to watch not only them grow, but watch the program grow and get to have these built-in women that I got to mentor, and men. We did have my year as president, we had our first man in Leadership Institute, and it was just a great experience. And I still feel that to this day, I call them my babies. And I mean, no disrespect of that, because I've taken them in, and they know that they can call me or text me at any time. And I'll be there for them and help them on their journey, because, sometimes I know in my personal journey, I was seeking out for a mentor. I didn't know, no one adopted me. And so I have made it my kind of mission to adopt others. When I see something good in someone, when I see so much potential in someone, to reach out and let them know and tell them, however I can be there for them, I'm going to be there for them. So that is one of the things that I am most excited to have been a part of. Some of the other things, I had a very interesting year. Before the end of the year, our CEO resigned, and nothing tests your leadership like something like that. Um, because there was a lot of doubt in that moment. Do I have what it takes to continue this organization, to carry this organization through this turmoil? Do I have the steadfastness to be a voice of reason and calm and assurance to all of our leaders? It wasn't even just about members at that time, it was about our leaders, because when leaders sense turmoil, you have to be like that duck, and you have to just be steadfast on top, but you are panicking inside. And so that was probably the most challenging part of my leadership, because no one tells you what to do. In my 20 plus years of leadership, no one told me what to do when the CEO resigns. But what I learned is I was equipped for that. I just didn't know. And so you do even in the national president position, you have that moment of doubt, but then you have your troops that rally around you, and you are able to do that. And so that is probably not what you were looking for the answer about being like
No, this is great. This is great because this is real.
it was, really that self-doubt that creeped in, and that I allowed to creep in. Granted, it was just for a moment in time, and I'll be ever thankful for the people that stepped up in that moment, and gave me that vote of confidence. Um, and we were able to get through it. And we were able to have a national meeting in the midst of a hurricane without a CEO. And so it was quite the experience, quite the ride for sure.
Well, that's exactly right. And I feel like your story is so real and authentic in a way, because this is where the leadership skills really come in. Not that they come into play, this is where they're birthed. Exactly
Mhm.
what you're saying. We think that, oh, I have XYZ skill set. I'm able to do this particular job or position, but that's not the case, because usually things are thrown our way that we don't expect, and then that's where it really the rubber meets the road, so to speak. But this kind of segues nicely into the next question about your leadership style, and how do you think that it maybe differed from some of your predecessors?
I'm a oh, I'm a consensus builder. I like to get buy-in from the whole team. The end of the day, it's my face on the line. It's my reputation on the line. But I do like to get feedback. I like to have everyone feel seen, valued, and heard. It doesn't mean I'm always going to agree with what you say, but I am going to take it into consideration and make the best decision for overall. And so that is one thing I think the leaders that served with me, they can say, is that I never made a decision without seeking their input, because at the end of the day, we are a team, and it's not just my decision. Now, I might have the final decision, I might have the tiebreaker vote or something like that, but I really wanted the buy-in from everybody.
Yeah, I love that. So you touched on one of your biggest challenges that you talked about during your year as president, but were there any other challenges that you faced during your presidency that you'd like to discuss?
Other challenges. I'm sure there will. I started out the year, we were still kind of post-COVID, but it was a crazy time because we were, I don't even know if we can say we're post-COVID now in 2024, but we were at that time we were coming out of everything. And so all of a sudden everyone wanted to have live meetings. And so I know very early in January, I started keeping track of the number of Zooms I was on. And it was maybe February 15th and it had been like 66 or something ridiculously crazy because I would wake up in Texas. I would fly to Florida to be there for other meetings, but then I would walk into my hotel room and Zoom to Alabama, and then I would walk in and be with Florida, and then I would walk into my hotel and have a leadership team meeting. Like it was overboard because you had to be all things to all people, whether it was in person or it was on Zoom. And so it was a very difficult kind of presidency. And I don't say difficult as in hard. It was difficult as in challenging. It was challenging to be present when I was with people, when I knew I had to be on a computer in 5 minutes and be present with those people. So I do think that members got the best value of it because they got more access to me as president. Um, but it was challenging, definitely challenging.
Yeah, I mean, I could totally relate and understand that, and sometimes when your head isn't in the game and you want to prepare and make sure that you're there and fully present, it is hard because you're being pulled in so many different directions. What was your vision for the future of the council then, and have you seen it play out? Now it's only 2 years later, but have you seen any of it still playing out in terms of influencing today's current programs, policies, priorities?
Well, for me, I've always had this passion to leave a lasting impact, and I never really knew what that exactly meant. So, as I was running and campaigning, I talked a lot about the ripple effect because you never know how holding that door open for someone is going to make a difference in their life, or slamming a door in someone's face is going to make a difference in someone's life. So, I really have tried to encourage people to talk about the good things. When they see good, speak it. And one of the things that I've been most proud of that I've gotten to see, I talked about Leadership Institute earlier. By the way, a caveat, application just opened. I just saw that on Facebook. So if anyone's interested in applying, application season just opened for the next Leadership Institute. But seeing the leaders that came through class 1, class 2, class 3, and now they are elevating to the national level. We just had several Leadership Institute graduates get elected as national liaisons, and that's even our treasurer that got elected was one of our Leadership Institute graduates. And so that is, the proof is in the pudding. What we are training to them, they are rising up and they are taking those seats. And that's what we're ultimately called to do as leaders, is to replace ourselves. And so seeing that this vision that Leadership Institute could create leaders and seeing it happen is just a magical experience to witness. And it's not, sure, people come to Leadership Institute and they will then go into maybe their state association or some other, or political or whatever it is, but seeing these leaders really rise to the challenge of leadership, it's beautiful.
Well, this segues nicely into the next question, which is about mentorship within leadership. And as you're talking about seeing how, these individuals during this leadership institute and seeing where they go and see how, how hard, how high they fly, so to speak. But what impact do you believe your personal mentorship, and you brought this up earlier about, them being your babies, but anything you wanted to additionally add to your own way of fostering growth, development, and things of that nature with members?
I think I realized that most of my leadership journey that I have a gift of authenticity. I have a gift of being willing to share the ugly. Um, and I think some reason that resonates with members. Maybe it's because in general we don't talk about the ugly. We have our highlight reel on Facebook. But I have been one that really is willing to go to the ugly and is really willing to talk about the struggles, because you know what? It's not all roses. It's not. Leadership is hard, and it's supposed to be hard. If it wasn't hard, everyone would do it. Uh, so I think that that is somehow a gift that I learned as I was coming into presidency. I didn't know it. I just really, we were we were preparing. Like I said, I am a consensus builder, so I had talked to my leadership team, and we had decided we were going to do sort of um, ignite speeches, is what we called them, at Network 360, and they were kind of like 5-minute TED Talks. And so we had like figured out the topics we wanted, and we had figured out the people we wanted to ask to speak. And the last one was about authenticity and leadership. And I'm like, I don't know who we should get to speak on that one. And my team was like, hello, you? And so I just thought it was really weird. And so I went down and I agreed. I agreed to the challenge. I would figure it out. And I wrote, I wouldn't even call it a speech. I think it was more of a data dump of my journey of leadership and what I had been through and what I had experienced and what I had learned from it. And this 5-minute speech ended up, I knew it was going to be too long. Ended up being 16, by the way. But I didn't let anybody read it. And then it was the night before Network 360 was going to start. The leadership team was already there, and we found out there was bad weather, and Leslie Ruda Smith, which was the incoming NAR president, wasn't going to be able to get there. And she had been diverted all across the country, and she was our keynote speaker the next morning. And she had been diverted all over the country, and she was still trying to get there. And I love that so much about her, because she was bending over backwards to be there for our members. And she had just boarded a plane that she'd gotten diverted to Tennessee, and then maybe she would get there, but it wasn't. And she had just boarded the plane, and she had texted me and said, Leslie, get off the plane, go home. Like, it's not worth it. You have your own leadership conference coming, like, we'll figure it out. And she did. She got off the plane. And so then it's that afternoon, and we're trying to figure out how we're going to rearrange the schedule, because now we have like a space in our schedule. And I can't even remember who suggested that we move my speech from the end of the day to that time. And Jeff, our CEO at the time, said, can I hear your speech now? Because I wouldn't let him hear it. I wouldn't let anybody hear it. And so we went in the other room, and I read him my speech, and he was just in awe. He was like, that's raw. I'm like, is that good or bad? I don't know. Like, what does that mean? So as it turned out, timing ended up perfect. I ended up doing that speech that morning, and there was probably not many dry eyes in the room. Men were crying. And that's when I realized that there was something about my story that resonated with everyone. And I still don't get it. I still don't get it. I do have that speech recorded if you want to hear it.
Oh
But
yeah, I would.
I ended up giving that speech, that same speech that was just my story, almost like a diary entry, 75 times over the following year, because there was something about it. So I think when you ask about mentoring, it's the biggest gift I've given to anyone, to own the ugly. There was one time I read a book, and I couldn't even tell you what the book was. I couldn't even tell you who the author was. And the only thing I got out of this book was one thing. And it's, when you lead with your biggest weakness, no one can use it against you. And that was life changing for me, because we all have fears that we hide behind, whether our fear is public speaking, or our fear is, I don't know, snakes, or honestly, everyone's real fear is being found out. Whatever they're trying to hide in themselves, and they're so afraid of being found out. So when you lead with that ugly, it's no longer a weapon anyone can use it against you, because I just freely give it to you. So there's no shame that comes with it. There's no guilt that comes with it, because I have given you the ugly. So I don't know. I think I'm talking in circles now, but
No,
that
this
is
is
my
great.
that is my gift that I feel that I have given to mentors and people that I've had the ability to speak with, is just own who you are. The good, the bad, the ugly, it doesn't matter, because you're human. At the end of the day, we're all human.
I'm taking lots of notes. So what key lessons, oh, I love that so much. And I want, moving on to the next question with regard to what key lessons do you think members, current members, can learn from both the successes and the setbacks that you've personally experienced in your leadership journey?
Hmm. I feel like members that have connected with me or connect with me on a deeper level to hear my whole story, um, the thing that they will learn the most from me is authenticity, obviously, but overcoming adversity. As I ran for the national line, as I ran for president-elect, national president-elect, the last election, it was a contested race. I was not the favored candidate. In fact, I saw the worst of humanity in our organization as people took to the rumor mill and like said all kinds of ugly. But I stood steadfast and I faced it, and I figured out I was a whole heck of a lot stronger than I ever gave myself credit for, and overcame that challenge. And so I think that you can learn more about me from the adversity I faced than you can from the successes. And I guess there was success in the adversity. Obviously, I did win and I did serve as president, but it's in the ugly, it's in the muck, it's in the yucky. If you know anything about the lotus flower, the lotus is such a gorgeous flower, but it grows in the muck and the yucky. It doesn't have the pretty soil and all of that around it, but it truly blooms in the yuck. And that's when I think most people truly bloom, because your major growth comes from your setbacks. And so that's what I think people get most from me.
And I think that many people can relate to that, you know, in all facets of life, not even just in women's council, I think in general. So I do think that, you know, your authenticity is really kind of comforting in that way because so many people can relate. So would you, so sorry, looking back over your journey, from local involvement to national leadership, because a lot of people have, you know, their local challenges and then they don't see themselves moving on. I know a lot of people ask me, where are you going from here? Are you going to move on to DBP? You're going to go here. So, I mean, there's kind of a lot of opportunity being thrown at us all the time, but what do you say? What are some of those lessons that you say that current members can learn from those experiences as you kind of move through the, you know, kind of move up the leadership journey, rank, however you want to describe it?
Um, so if you don't try, if you don't ask, the answer is always no. And so for me, I raised my hand for that first. I'm from a big state like you, for that first district vice president position. And I didn't get the answer I wanted. When I went through nominating, which we don't have nominating now, but when I went through nominating, they said, you have plenty of time. And I'm like, not plenty of time. I don't, I don't care that I'm only 30. I don't have plenty of time. You can't guarantee me that I'm going to live tomorrow. So that's not, I wasn't okay with that answer. Um, and so, but if I had never put myself forward, or if I had never faced that person telling me no, I wouldn't have become who I am. And it's in every time you put yourself out there to do something more, to learn something more, um, that's when you truly grow. And for me, I feel like it's almost like a high that I was chasing. Um, because I could reflect each year how much I had grown. And I'm like, if I had grown this much this year, how much can I do if I do the next position? How much can I do if I do the next position? And even as being a past president, it's still the same thing. How much more can I learn if I do this next challenge? And continuing to challenge yourself is where the real growth is. So for when moving up in women's council isn't for everyone, but you're going to have your something you're passionate about, whether it's, you know, um, some parent organization, your HOA, your city council, your local board of realtors, your state board of realtors, whatever it is, just say yes. Just say yes to trying to become the best version of yourself. And if doors close, but that means there's another door. But also, don't forget, doors open. So sometimes they might slam in your face, and you might just have to try again to open it. So don't give up. Just keep pursuing to be a better version of yourself.
Awesome. So, any sage words of wisdom that if I knew then what I know now, as we kind of close out as a closing statement of sorts, moments would you like to share with members?
If I knew then what man, I wish I had prepared for this, because I would read you something. When I went through my biggest adversity, and I had actually won the election, I was talking to my life coach, and I told her, I wished you had told me to write a letter to my future self. And she said, why can't you do it right now? And I was referring to the person that faced the adversity to the person that overcame the adversity. And I was like, I'm in that future tense now. I can't go back and write that. And then I was like, you know what? I can go back and write it, but I think it's not a letter. I think it's a book. And so I started, writing a book. I have kind of stepped away from it a little bit. I have probably like 5 chapters, but that letter to my future self is the introduction. If I had prepared, I would have it and end this with it and read it to you. But it's just, despite the fear, do it anyways. Despite the anxiousness that you have inside of yourself, do it anyways, because you never know what's on the other side of that fear.
So true. I love it so much.
All right. And this is the final chapter of my book that I have been working on, which was a true life experience. It's entitled, this chapter is entitled The Climb. I've always been that girl that gets really excited when I see pretty colors in the sky. Yes, I'm that girl that will literally stop driving just to take a picture of a gorgeous sunrise or sunset. So it was no surprise when I immediately jumped at the opportunity to wake up and take a hike up a mountain to see the best sunrise. Sure, I've never hiked before, but that didn't matter because I would have a gorgeous sunrise to make it worth it. As we arrived about 5:40 a.m., I confessed I was slightly nervous. Let's be real. Not only had I not hiked before, it was pitch black out there. Were there wild animals? Snakes? Stop it, Sylvia. Get out of your own head. We were racing the sunrise to get to the top, so I had to set my head aside. Our hike would be about 3 miles total, 1.5 miles up to the little white cross at the top of the mountain and 1.5 miles back down. Several times Heather said we don't have to go all the way to the top, and if I wanted to stop, it was okay. But I quickly barked back that we were going all the way to the top. We weren't even 1/10 of a mile in when I realized I was in over my head. What were these muscles in my legs, and why were they screaming at me? It didn't take me a hot second to realize the climb was going to push me, but little did I know the magnitude. Although I was doing this with Heather and tons of other people that passed us on the trail, this was my journey. I was the only one that could make my feet put one step in front of the other. Only I would reach down and brace myself when it felt like I might slip. It was me and me alone carrying the baggage of the past year plus of my life. But that was the same experience of everyone on the trail. I didn't know the weight of what they were carrying on their shoulders. About 1/4 of a mile in, I turned around to take in the view, the valley beneath me, the length I had traveled, and then what the heck was that? Why am I choking up? As we continued up, I began to uncover so much more. This particular trail is probably traveled by 1,000 people a day, and yet there were so many different options you could choose as you were going to take your next step. Do you choose the smoother rock where it's obvious most people step? Or do you choose the bigger step because it looks sturdier? Or are you so focused on those options that you can't see the 8 other options available to you if you just slightly moved your flashlight? My friend Heather will forever be more active than me, so it was no surprise that she would get ahead of me, which I actually appreciated. But those times she would circle back made all the difference in the world. She would turn around and her light would illuminate the path before me, showing me an array of options available. Sometimes we're so stuck in life because we are living with blinders on that we only see the path before us. But when we really open our eyes, the path we really need to take is the one we might not have ever seen. About a half a mile in or up, I don't even know. This is not my thing. I was definitely beginning to struggle breathing. Was it the elevation? Was it this emotional breakthrough going on in me? As Heather looked back, she reminded me we could stop any time, and to which I not very nicely yelled back, "I'm not quitting." Thank God for friends that love us when we're not so very lovable. She reminded me how important breathing was, and I needed to take the damn inhaler. Yes, breathe. It's the altitude. I'm not going to start crying climbing a freaking mountain. As I stopped for a minute to look at the beauty around me, the twists and the turns, the valleys and the peaks, the pink glow of the sun beginning to rise across the horizon. The past year and everything I had overcame came bursting out my heart and pouring out my eyes. All the so-called friends I had lost, the real friends I had discovered, the good times, the bad times, that I never want to live this day again. I never want this day to end days, the slander attacks, the most unexpected support, the uncertainty, the growth, the fear, the moments of courage, the 2 steps forward and 1 step back. It was all a magical part that was required for my climb. I didn't realize that Heather had walked back to me as I'm standing there crying and looking at the glow on the horizon. As our eyes meet, I tell her how I didn't expect this to be so emotional. This climb was meant for me as a celebration of everything I had overcome over the past year. As we stood there on that mountain, hugging and crying, I realized this was the purpose. This climb was for me, and everything that I had been through had happened for me. Suddenly, getting to the top of the mountain before sunrise became completely irrelevant. I traveled a little further, realizing that my journey was not meant to get to the top. My journey was meant to push me to my limits so I could reflect on everything I had overcome. Some stacked rocks caught my eye, and I decided this was my stopping point to watch the sunrise. And then I realized there were exactly 8 rocks stacked on top of each other, and I had complete clarity. All of this was meant for me.
Wow. Total goosebump moments over and over and over again. But this has been incredible. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. This has truly been a joy and a pleasure to get to know you better. Thank you so much for everything, for your contributions to the organization. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for sharing with us. I can't tell you how much I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Well, again, I really do value this time that we shared together and cannot thank you enough. So 2022 past national president Sylvia Seabolt, this has been a joy and a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.